With such a taxing problem of Hamas stepping into power in Gaza and the West Bank, what on earth are we doing expending so much energy and concern on battles between teenagers and the police force? Pondered aloud, rather angrily, a leading Jerusalem official. Israel is indeed still all wrapped up in the implications of last week's fierce clash at the West Bank settlement outpost of Amona between thousands of mainly young settlers and their mainly religious supporters on one hand, and phalanxes of police and border police on the other. The security forces had been sent in to ensure the razing of 9 empty houses, which the Israeli Supreme Court ordered demolished because they had been illegally erected on a hilltop near Palestinian villages. Over 200 people were wounded during the ugly scenes of protesters and police squaring off in combat against each other. On Sunday night, the hard-pressed police were again on hand as settlers and their supporters massed in a central Jerusalem square. This time, however, they kept their distance, as tens of thousands from the nationalist right camp protested against what they label police brutality. Angrily but peacefully, the rally went ahead, under banners reading, "Olmert, bad for the Jews." Ehud Olmert, the acting Prime Minister, is unfazed. There will be no inquiry commission into the police handling of the rioting settlers, nor, he says firmly, will he be deterred from more action against unauthorized settlement in the West Bank. What is going on? Is this only a marginal matter which simply got out of hand because tempers frayed, or because, as the settlers and Olmert supporters alike allege, the other side was interested in entrenching its position in order to gain political capital in advance of next month's general elections? Frankly, it's not marginal at all. Not at all. This is as central an issue for Israel's future as they come. And both sides are right, from their respective points of view, to be taking it so seriously. Bad for the Jews, the settler slogan, is of course about point of view. But it's not to say that Israel's hard ideological right hasn't sensed something very important about Ariel Sharon's would-be successor, that Ehud Olmert intends to take the country down a road which could seriously threaten the whole structure of their ideology, the thinking of the right, which during the past 30 years has dominated much of Israeli politics and, more significantly, of Israeli actions. What does it all boil down to? 18 months ago, Ariel Sharon pronounced his intention to change course and to pull Israel out of Gaza. But even before that, Ehud Olmert went ahead in what some saw as a stalking horse role, but which came to be seen in retrospect as something of a path-blazing role. It was Olmert who declared emphatically that Israel would soon have to face up to a serious decision, one which had been shelved for decades, and which, perhaps, he said, would be the toughest since 1967, when, having seen off an Arab threat, Israel came to control large areas occupied in the Six-Day War. This was Olmert's point in a nutshell. We, the people of Israel, have finally to face up to ourselves, to ask ourselves, not to bother with what others are asking of us, but to ask ourselves, what is it, the Israel that we want, the Israel which we will fight for, live for, even, he said, be prepared to die for. Following the Gaza pullout, that statement has been transformed into a firm political line enunciated by Ariel Sharon shortly before he was struck down with illness as, what should Israel's permanent borders be? In other words, should Israel be ready to go on withdrawing, even unilaterally if need be, from parts of the West Bank, as it did from the whole of Gaza? This in order to settle what, in fact, Israel is. Confronting that Sharon-Olmert position is an even firmer stand that has gradually been evolving on the side of the settlers and their hardline ideologues behind them. Take, for instance, Avi Boaron, a 32-year-old lawyer at the forefront of the struggle over the Amona outpost. There is, says Boaron, growing disaffection with the state of Israel among young Orthodox Jews on the political right. A growing proportion of them are becoming, in his term, post-Zionist, people for whom the state of Israel is no longer seen as the beginning of the redemption of the Jewish people, but who, on the contrary, see the state as actually impeding the development of the Jewish people. Listen also to Aryeh Eldad, a Knesset member of the ultranationalist National Union Party. He predicts growing support for the position of what's called the Kingdom of Judea instead of the State of Israel. There used to be just a handful who talked like that, people really on the margins. But now, insists Eldad, there are thousands. And he warns darkly, should Olmert pursue the idea of another territorial disengagement, this time in the West Bank, there will be literally tens of thousands who will return to the hills of the West Bank. People who support a parallel state to the Jewish state, a state which would not abandon the settler enterprise, the direction in which they feel and Israel under Ehud Olmert is heading. Followers of a messianic ideology which views Israel mainly as a temporary means to reach the final goal, seeking the creation of the antithesis of Israel, and covering both Israel and what the world regards as Palestine with the Kingdom of Israel. In short, a growing band of devotees who no longer see themselves as part of the state of Israel, people who will not respect what the great majority of Israelis through democratic procedures have chosen, in Ehud Olmert's phrase, the Israel we will live and die for. It's not apocalyptic to say that Israel is about to face, maybe already facing, an internal ideological struggle, an elemental battle of the very first order. Are there bridges that can set aside this titanic battle? Gloomily, one has to conclude it's not at all that easy to see how.